Welcome back to the Adventures 3. This is a video that is kind of new to us. We wanted to kind of give you a deep dive in of our experience the last couple years traveling full-time. We've done both RV travel in the United States, but also we've done world travel. Anywhere from living in Southeast Asia into Central America. We've done all kinds of different traveling in the last couple years, and we've have some knowledge. So we wanted to break down the 5 differences between RV life and world travel.
And this list took us a while to create because we made a lot of errors in the process of making this list. So we wanted to save you guys a little bit of trouble while you're making your decisions on how to travel full time.
It's one of those things that when we first started out, looking, to try and get some knowledge about full-time travel, either world travel or RV travel, we realized that not a lot of people had decided to do both or had a really good perspective on both world travel and RV travel. It was either van life, fifth wheel, class A type travel, or it was world travel where, they packed a suitcase and left the United States for, an undisclosed amount of time. And we wanted to break down our experience these last couple of years with 5 different categories, starting with the startup costs.
So the startup cost for world travel is very minimal. You don't need a whole lot to jump on an airplane. You need to buy airplane tickets. You need to make sure if you have a visa for wherever you're going, you need to make sure your passport's good. And that's a suitcase. Throw your clothes in a suitcase and call it good.
It's pretty easy to start world travel. You pick a destination, you just go, and you can kind of figure out the rest on the way. And it was one of those things that it was really easy. We picked, for example, we picked Mexico for our first destination. We packed a bag and went. And that was it. We found an Airbnb, and that was all pretty much the research we wanted to do. Now, when we got back to the United States after our 4 or 5 months of traveling through Southeast Asia, we wanted to move into an RV. And the startup cost for an RV is, no matter how inexpensive you want to go or how expensive you do want to go, it's still very expensive. And I'm not just talking about money, but I'm also talking about time. It took us almost 6 weeks to purchase our used RV, which was very inexpensive. But not only just the RV cost itself, but just the overall accessories that you need to outfit your RV to make it ready to either boondock or go to an RV site. There's a lot of things like blocks, Level Mate Pro, sewer hoses and generators and, accessories that you might need just to start. And it's very expensive to start, where world travel was super cheap.
So the second thing on our list are the amenities. So with RV travel, the amenities that you get to have are much like the amenities that you're used to in a regular house. We were actually shocked at how much we were able to bring with us in the RV, even having a smaller RV where you have your own pillows, you have your own blankets, you have your own towels, you can even have your own mattress that you want because you want to be comfortable. Kitchen appliances, you find a spot for the things that you use on a regular basis and you don't have to live without it.
It's one of those things when you leave the United States, you realize that your Tempur-Pedic pillow and your mattress is only going to be found at a 5-star hotel or a 5-star accommodation. The way that we travel is somewhat budget friendly, and the amenities like a comfortable pillow is just not a priority for the rest of the world like it is in the United States. And finding some of the amenities like Charmin toilet paper in Thailand is just not a thing. They give you some toilet paper to essentially dry your butt and not clean your butt. Okay, because you're going to be using a garden hose to as a bidet. And there's these certain things that you just have to understand that it's just not a priority for the rest of the world. and it hasn't been marketed to us. But at the same time, in the RV life, there are things that we learn to really enjoy and we really love to have. And, one thing that comes to mind is, deciding, what size toaster you want. Like that was a decision, in RV life, what kind of TV service, or, you could have a couch, and a lot of these things that when you do switch over to, world traveling, the amenities just aren't there. And especially when it comes to actually what you're bringing on world travel. You've pretty much stuck to a suitcase and you stick your entire life in that suitcase. And no matter how big the suitcase is, it's one of those things that you can't bring everything. And you can't bring, your 12-pack roll of toilet paper, you can't bring your Tempur-Pedic pillow, and you can't bring, your entire wardrobe with you like you can in an RV. So that's something that you need to be aware of, when making that decision. Even though an RV might be only 160 square feet, 200 square feet, you'd be shocked at how much stuff you can pack into that RV.
Next on our list is the time spent relaxing. So in world travel, when it's a day to relax, it's generally just a day to relax. You get to do whatever you want. Any little things that you need to get done generally only take a few minutes, and the rest of the time is spent by the pool, at the beach, whatever you choose to do that day. If something breaks in your Airbnb, you're not really required to fix it. You message your host and they take care of it. You're in a hotel, the same thing. They move you to a different hotel. It's not really your responsibility at that point. So you get a lot of extra time.
Now, time spent relaxing is one of those things that when you decide to travel full time, it's usually a passion and you want to experience different things. And oftentimes people overlook the amount of time that you're going to be spending working on your RV. You can go out and buy a brand new $180,000 rig. It's still going to break. There's things that are just going to rattle apart, and no manufacturer is perfect. And it's one of those things that we overlooked, the amount of time that instead of hanging out as a family, I was spent working on the water pump, or the City Water Connect, or the axles, or greasing the hubs, or fixing the roof, or solving a water problem, or running to the store to get parts. I didn't really realize that how much of that time would be spent making repairs. You somewhat have to be a handy person to be able to keep that lifestyle going. And I recognized that about halfway through our journey across the United States, I looked at Caitlin and I said, it's so much easier just to buy a plane ticket, book an Airbnb, and go. Because there's no real, the planning part isn't as rigorous. You don't have to worry about the roads and the height and clearance and can I get fuel, can I not get fuel, do I dump my poop here, do I dump my poop down the road? There's just a lot of moving parts when it comes to the RV travel. That's something that we overlooked when we first got into it.
Definitely. And also just one of those things that in RV travel, everything takes a lot longer. Like the time spent in the RV and supplying for the RV, everything took a lot longer.
Well, just imagine, checking into a hotel, how long that takes. About, anywhere from 2 to 12 minutes. I think the longest time might be just walking to your Airbnb or your accommodation.
Yes.
When you pull into a spot, even if you're boondocking or just camping for the night, in a Cracker Barrel parking lot, it's a process. Like you got to make sure it's level, you got to turn the fridge on, you got to make sure the propane's working, you got to make sure all these systems and everything are really ready for you to live wherever you've chosen, to lay your head that night. And it's something that, time is money, and it's definitely a consideration, and it's something that, we didn't really understand until, you find yourself boondocking somewhere and realizing why doesn't the refrigerator work? Well, it's because you didn't level the trailer properly. Another
thing that we kind of took for granted was, I guess, the adventures.
Yeah, number 4 is adventures. Like, it's one of those things when you are going to be traveling the world, it's a choice. And, if either in an RV or traveling the world, it's a choice to go out and have adventures. You're probably someone that doesn't just want to sit inside your living room and watch Netflix every day, or you'd be doing that and you wouldn't be watching, two, middle-aged people talking about traveling the world in an RV. And it's something that you need to recognize that oftentimes the adventures that you are expecting to have all out in the world, I was rather disappointed in. There was many times where we went on and took on, some type of adventure like hiking to Big Buddha, or going to Phi Phi Island in Phuket, Thailand, or going to see Nusa Penida in Indonesia, and realized that a lot of these places are just filled with thousands of tourists. And it's one of those Instagrammable moments that is a bit hidden. We took off to the rice fields in Ubud, and we were going to do the swing and everything, and then recognized that there's a long wait time to do that swing picture, and it's really manufactured a lot of times. And that was one of the more disappointing things about world travel, is a lot of the destinations with these adventures that you have in mind are often on everyone else's bucket list.
That's true, but we have not come across that when we are traveling in the RV. When we travel in the RV in the United States, generally you can find yourself a little bit more secluded and in some areas that are a little bit more spaced out. So when you have a destination in mind, you can choose the time that you want to go that's the most convenient for you, and you're not generally going to wait in a huge line to get this great picture. And generally the picture is what you expect, like what you've done the research on, that's what you get in real life. And I think that's a really something that we took for granted in the United States.
So fifth on our category is cost of living. This is something that, we recognize that everyone else has, many different budgets, and we're not necessarily the wealthiest people in the world, and we are definitely, budget conscious when we are traveling. And again, we don't want to, discourage anyone to go either from RV life or to traveling the world. You can do it pretty much on any budget, but we have discovered that, when you are traveling inside the United States, inside an RV, there are some expected fees that you're just going to have to pay. And I'm talking about, just maintenance on your vehicle or your rig, or the fuel costs, or some of the more expensive areas to stay in, like the Pacific Coast Highway in the middle of the summertime. But you can definitely do it. If you want to spend, 4th of July in, southern Arizona, you're probably going to be the only one there because it's going to be 137 degrees. And you can do that relatively, affordably. But at the same time, RV life at times can be, from our experience, rather expensive to have some of the experiences that we like to have. For example, going out to eat, or having a cocktail, or having some of the local experiences, like maybe like the balloon rides, or traveling to the top of the mountain on a tram ride, or zip lining through the mountains of South Lake Tahoe. Those are things that are just relatively more expensive because they're just generally in the United States more expensive.
Yeah, so we found traveling worldwide, the cost of living, the cost of groceries, the cost of living, eating out is generally a little bit less expensive. So even like doing laundry, we aren't doing our own laundry, we take it to get it done, and it is so much less expensive than it is in an RV.
Now keep in mind, the world travel that we're talking about from our own experience is generally anywhere around the equator. We've discovered that, in the central part of the world, near that equator where it doesn't really get cold ever, is where we like to travel, not because we just love the beaches, but because the cost of living is a lot less. Now, if you're going to travel to places like maybe, northern Italy, Ireland, parts of, northern parts of Europe, those are places that are going to be really expensive, and the cost of living is going to be probably very comparable to the United States. Even places like Japan or Australia or parts of Canada, it's just going to be, way more expensive to do some of those activities. And activities in the sense of, where do you actually live? For example, when we stayed in Uluwatu, we were able to stay in this beautiful hut with all the amenities of a pool, a couple geckos living with us, but we were literally feet from the beach. And it was one of those opportunities that, if we were gonna have a very similar accommodation, say in Hawaii or maybe parts of the Caribbean, we wouldn't have been able to afford it.
The difference between RV and world travel, like, we love both. We absolutely love doing both ways of travel. And I think that's what we've decided. I think we're going to continue to do both.
Yeah, and as you're sitting here watching us talk about, from some of our experiences, both RV travel and world travel, you realize that you really need to question certain things, but I would also encourage you to test out, these different lifestyles, because if you're not real comfortable, spending your entire life in 160 square feet, the 400 square foot Airbnb is going to feel like, a mansion. And it really does. But in order to actually go out there and do some of these things, I wish we would have done beforehand was be able to actually maybe rent an RV, or maybe, go and stay somewhere, for a couple weeks before diving into, we're going to world travel, or we are just going to do RV life. Now, as we conclude this video, we recognize that we do love both. We love world travel, and we also love traveling in the United States in an RV. We found that they both can be budget friendly, and it's something that we can make happen. It's just we wanted to provide, the experiences that we've had to you to help you make a better decision, because I don't think a lot of content out there is capturing both the RV world and world travel.
So if you have any questions about either topic, please leave a comment below, and we are happy to answer whatever we have for you.
And it's one of those things that we've made lots of mistakes in this world travel, to simple things like picking the wrong airline, where it costs you hundreds of dollars just to have your luggage shipped to you, or buying an RV with a hole in it, and having that kind of problem. There's been many, we've had a lot of experiences, some good and some great and some horrible. And instead of learning from your own experiences, please learn from ours. And if you do have any questions, the best way to do that is just leave a comment below, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. So till next time, cheers.